Welcome to the John Malone Show. Today's topic for discussion on Unfinished Conversations is homelessness. What does that mean, and why do we keep hearing about it? Well, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's dig into this. First off, I'd like to say I've never been homeless. I've never had to experience homelessness. I empathize. I have compassion. I don't know what I'd ever do if I was faced with that situation. I'm grateful that I haven't yet. I hope I never do. I know I've thought about what would I do if I were in that situation. Would I stay in the city? Would I move out to the woods? I mean, I would probably move out of the woods, right? I mean, that would be the natural inclination for me. I would think I would move out of the woods, find a place that was near a stream. So I'd have fresh water. I could fish from the stream. I could set up camp just off, not too far away, build some kind of shelter with sticks and trees or whatever's nearby. Live like the pioneers did, back in the day, right? I mean, that's the romantic vision I have in my head of what would I do if I were in that situation. I know it's never that simple, right? We always think it's always easier. You see some of those reality shows where they send people out in the middle of nowhere and they don't make it for a couple of days. So how did the pioneers do it when they first started settling out here in America in the plains and moving out west? They figured out a way to make it work. Well, I mean, I know that's not an answer, okay? I know that that's not an answer right now. But what is an answer? Why has this not been resolved? We've had homelessness forever. I know homelessness has been an issue, especially in the last couple of years, and especially during the pandemic. I've watched enough news, seen it on social media, seen other podcasts talking about it, how bad things are in California right now. But what's the fix? This has got to be a relatively simple solution to these things. It's getting these people in a home, getting them off the streets. How much do we spend as a country on homelessness? What does the government spend? In January 2018, 552,830 people were counted as homeless in the United States of America. 35% of those were unsheltered. About 65% were sheltered. I had to look into what that meant. Sheltered meant that they were living in a shelter, which is just a temporary overnight situation. That's not a fix. These people need a home, stability, resources. There's got to be a solution. It's not going to be an easy solution, but there are solutions. What are immediate fixes right now? I had to think about that. Where's someplace where we could take these homeless people, give them food, clothing, shelter, access to medical care, access to psychiatric care, and how can we help them get their lives started over again? And the first thing I thought of is, how many empty military bases are there in the United States? I mean, abandoned military facilities that already have the structures, that have like barracks, that have a mess hall, that have hospital facilities. I mean, last time I was at a military base was at my brother's graduation at Fort Dixon, New Jersey from basic training. But I remember it was a huge facility. It was almost like a university campus, right? I mean, but multiply that by like 100. This was a huge facility. So in my mind, I think, could we renovate these facilities? Make it to where, they would have a little bit of private space. Of course, there would have to be security there, and we would have either maybe the National Guard would handle that, or the military would handle that. Maybe have military doctors working there. We could help get these people turned around. Wouldn't force anybody to be there, but I think of like an immediate fix, and they can help with the restoration of these facilities. You can take all that empty land where they practice maneuvers and turn that into crops. I think of like those 60s hippie communes, or 70s hippie communes where people go and live and they work on the land. They all have the same beliefs and ideas, where they all work as a community. Is that not so impossible to do? This has to be a relatively simple fix. Just on what we spend in America on prisons. The total U.S. government expenses on public prisons and jails is about $80 billion. And on private prisons and jails is about $3.9 billion. Well, how many people that are homeless end up going into prison? Can we flip those costs? On average, Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. We spend $35 billion a year on gym memberships. The U.S. government spent $718 billion on its military in 2019 alone. Yet we don't ever solve homelessness. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the United States. That's a big number, but when you compare to the things I just discussed, why aren't we fixing this? 66.7% of the total homeless population in the U.S. are single individuals. The remaining 33.3% are families. In recent years, homelessness increased nationally by almost 1%. This number comprises unaccompanied children and young adults, and people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. I still don't understand that term, sheltered homelessness. You know how much on average it costs to build an apartment complex? In 2020, it cost about $22 million on average to build an apartment complex. You have to figure your hard costs make up the vast majority of the budget in terms of construction costs, material, labor, engineering, contractors, subcontractor bids. Brookings Institute data suggests that a hard building cost will account for about 50 to 70% of the budget. The final 20 to 30% of your budget will be soft cost. These typically include supplemental fees like architectural fees, interior design fees, and legal fees. Other assessments break down into like furniture, which can be broken down into what they call FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. To build a low-rise apartment building that has 5 to 50 units could be anywhere between $150 to $225 per square foot. Mid-rise, which would be 50 to 200 units, on average is about $175 to $250 per square foot. And a high-rise, call that 200 plus units, would be anywhere between $225 to $400 per square foot. So if you look at that, a low-rise would cost anywhere between $661,000 to $9 million. A mid-rise anywhere between $7 million to $44 million. And high-rise is exceeding that. What's interesting about that, since 2008, average cost of low-income housing is $700 per square foot. That's low-income housing. So if you can build a luxury apartment building at $400 a square foot, you got to realize these have fitness centers, swimming pools, amenities for $400 a square foot. How is it the government is spending $700 a square foot? That's in 2019. I know George Carlin said it best back in 1992. We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we declare war on. We don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving problems. Declaring war. We have the war on crime, the war on litter, the war on cancer, and the war on drugs. Did you ever notice we don't have a war on homelessness? No war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. No money to be made off the homeless. If you can find a solution for homelessness where corporate swine and politicians can steal a couple of $1 million each year, you'll see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty damn quick. I'll guarantee you that. He's not wrong. Otherwise, we would have solved this problem by now. Now, is this the government's fault? Or is it the government's responsibility? Well, it kind of is. If you look at what the government spends nationally on homelessness, and then you take a look at what each state spends on homelessness, it's astounding. It's actually downright wasteful. The government spends on average about $36,000 for every person who must endure chronic homelessness. Much of this money goes towards public-funded crisis services, including jails, hospitalizations, and emergency departments. So what would that cost be if we were to put that into building structures, permanent structures? And I don't mean what we think of when we think of low-income housing. These places can be nice. They can be a turning point for folks. To what point do we look at these issues and say there's a better way, there's a more economic way, there's a more humanitarian way? When I talk about using these military facilities as an option, I don't want you to think of like we're going to take buses and round these people up against their will. We should want people to want to go there. It should be a resource. Should anybody ever come across the situation, they know where to go. I just feel like the money that we're spending right now, and it's not solving problems, versus if we were to take that money and have permanent solutions, like building apartments for these folks, or taking these military bases and refurbishing them. One of the reasons why I think about military facilities is because they would have access to medical care, psychiatric care. What can we do to help these people get their lives turned around? Some of these folks might need those services, some might not. Be a place to bring people in, evaluate them, and see what we can best do to help them. I think about what we spend on immigration. There was a news report that said Joe Biden is spending $395 for immigrants on hotel rooms. Well, we know that's not completely accurate. Might not be far from that number, but $395 a night. Come on, Joe, you couldn't get a better deal from Hotels.com or Expedia? What are we doing? I did look into it, and the current administration is spending $86 million on hotel rooms for migrants. And his administration struggles to handle the surge of families and kids trying to come into the U.S. So could we have a double-use purpose facility? So we'd have homeless and migrants? These facilities would be used for anybody dealing with hardship. And I think of the more that we build them like an apartment complex, so people would feel safe, and you would have all the social services there. And we wouldn't have to worry about busing people to places or getting transportation to here and there. Transportation is an issue for a lot of people. They can't get to places. So having a facility where everything is there and we help you turn your life around so you can function normally in society. I know this won't work for everybody. A lot of people don't want help. We'll have to figure out what to do with them. But what we can focus on is the people who do want help. The people who need a helping hand, not a handout, a helping hand. It just seems like when it comes to these issues, we're stepping over a dollar to get to a dime. It either feels like we're wasting money or we're wasting resources. None of this is easy. I understand that. But it should be relatively simple. Is this something where we can put a couple of organizations together to work on this solution? Where we put together HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, and FEMA, and maybe the National Guard, and maybe the Army Corps of Engineers to work on this together to build these facilities? At least it would be almost an immediate fix. And I don't hear any other solutions. For all the news media, for all the pundits that I see, they just talk about homelessness. Oh, it's so bad here. It's so bad there. What are your solutions? All these politicians that are running for office. I'm going to fix homelessness. How? I don't know how, but I say I'm going to fix it. They seem to be really good at that. We don't do anything. We just talk about it. Well, we're tired of the talk. Our inability to act astounds me. We used to be a country of innovators, problem solvers, a country full of entrepreneurs. I know I see enough of them on Shark Tank with all these gadgets and widgets, but what are they doing for society? What are we doing for our fellow man? What can you do as an individual right now to help somebody in need? How many friends do you have on Facebook that you ever see that are posting about issues that they're having in their life right now because of COVID or loss of a job, or they're having issues that are no fault of their own? What can you do today to help? Could you give $1? You think that wouldn't be that much of an impact? Let's say you have a friend that has 500 friends on Facebook and they each gave $1. That would be $500. Could that be a huge help to that person right now? Maybe that's what gets them out of their struggle. What if you gave $2? That's $1,000. You'll spend $5 on a latte, but you won't give a friend $1. And I know how we feel about charity in America now. Right? Enough people have taken advantage of the system, and I know all the fraud that happens with charity. But have we become that cynical that we won't help a fellow human being? We've anthropomorphized animals, where we have absolute unconditional love for animals, and we make a thing out of rescuing them. I love animals. I also respect my fellow man, though. I looked it up, and there are hundreds of organizations that help with homelessness. Hundreds. And I imagine they mostly operate on donations, so they're getting their money from somewhere. And even with all that, those organizations haven't solved homelessness because it's a Band-Aid on open heart surgery. It's a temporary fix. They just have beds for the night. These places only offer temporary solutions, place to stay at night, a meal. But are they working on root causes? Are they working on solutions? Are they helping these people turn their lives around? Are they helping them with counseling, medical help, with education? Helping these people with wardrobes, helping them with job interviews, and then moving them onto permanent housing solutions. It just seems so wasteful. It's so hard to see every day. I'm not talking about poverty. I'm not talking about education. Right now, I'm just looking at homelessness. This seems to be a very important crisis right now that we can tackle if we put our minds together, if we help each other. Can we find compassion? I think we can. I have faith in all of you. Let's try to turn things around. I'm just trying to figure out right now, what can we do immediately to help with this issue? What would it take to turn around these military facilities? We have 8 empty prisons in the United States that we've turned into museums. Prisons that we've turned into museums that you can spend money on to go visit. A prison. God, we are so wasteful. I know that there's ways to fix this. We just have to fight to make it want to happen. We can't just talk about it. We have to put words to action. We have to look after one another. We can make these things happen. Just need to care about each other a little bit more. You need to let your voices be heard by voting and making sure the people that you vote for care about the same things that you care about. So what do you think? Can we fix homelessness? Can we solve this issue? Can we put our minds together and make things happen? I think we can. If you have any opinions or ideas, tell me. Leave a comment below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. If you've enjoyed this show, please hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you next time on The John Malone Show.